No Box Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, process production and social media. Don't forget, say no to the box. Dile no a la caja. 고정관념이란 상자에서 벗어나세요.
Welcome back to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. This is your host, Marthea. In season 6, our theme is dance and technology. Our goal this season is to talk about how dance can coexist in a world of screens, social media, and interactive and immersive environments. Our guest, cari shim, is currently investigating blockchain GIF archival of performance and developing an open source community developed AI choreographer. Cari is a co-founder curator for the Museum of Wild and Newfangled Art, which we will talk about today, and a full arts professor at NYU. I'm very excited for our conversation. Welcome to our show.
Thanks.
To get us started, can you briefly introduce yourself?
I am a wild artist working at the intersections of dance and technology.
I love it. Most guests don't understand what briefly means. It's fantastic. I thought we could maybe start our conversation talking about NFTs. Most of our listeners probably are somewhat familiar with NFTs at this point in time, but maybe there are some listeners who aren't as familiar. So could you just explain what an NFT is in very simple elementary terms for us? And those are non-fungible tokens.
Yeah, that's a great explanation right there. I think the space right now, Web3, is moving away from that terminology, partially because it has a taboo attached to it. And we're talking about tokens now that are minted to the blockchain. So it's blockchain technology, and it's a way of making a mark onto the blockchain with a digital file. And that is proof that the file exists. It's uneditable and it can never be changed. So it's a way of identifying, acknowledging, and in terms of art in the traditional art world, it's a way of certificating a piece of art. And it also allows for the art to be followed and tracked so that the provenance can be detailed. And in the traditional art world, where it's something like over 50% of art is forged, this is a technology that allows for forgery to not take place. So it's a huge revolution in the art world. It's also an incredible time for digital artists because it's a way to put the work onto the blockchain and then sell it. So there's a marketplace attached to it that is built upon different blockchains. And right now, the blockchains that I'm working with are the Tezos blockchain and the Ethereum blockchain. And I'm selling my artwork on there through platforms that there are many of. And the ones that I'm working with are object.com and FX Hash and Emergent Properties. And all of these platforms showcase different styles of work. For example, FX Hash is for generative art, and Emergent Properties, also known as MProps, is for AI generative art. And Object is housing a much wider catch of digital art. It's the largest marketplace for art on the Tezos blockchain. And so an artist can take a digital file, mint it on one of these platforms, and then list it for sale, and they can sell it with royalties attached. So you could set your royalties at 25%. And so the first sale, you get all of the money, and secondary sales, you get 25% of that sale every time it goes. And that is very powerful for artists to be able to sell their work in the first place, and then to have secondary income, passive income from additional sales of the work. So it's a great time to be alive. It's very exciting. It's a renaissance. It's wild. We just had NFT NYC here, so I'm beat from that this week. That was last week. But yeah, there's a lot happening, and I'm very excited for the future. It is the future.
I'm excited to dive more into this. And I'm wondering, where did you start out? Were you initially like an owner collector, or what was your starting point, and how did you know that this was a space you wanted or you needed to be a part of?
Yeah. I think it started with the Museum of Wild and Newfangled Art. It started with the pandemic and lockdown. It started with being confined to our apartments and not having a way of exhibiting work. It started with the Whitney Biennial postponing their biennial. And that was the moment where Joey Zaza and I decided to do it anyways. Let's do it anyways. Let's throw our own biennial. And that's what created the Museum of Wild and Newfangled Art. And when we launched our call for submissions, we're exposed to a large amount of artists from all over the world. And most of these artists were already working with blockchain. And so they introduced it to us. And we were really slow in our approach to it. And I, as well as an artist, I was very slow. I took my time. I really wanted to understand it. And yeah, I first entered in as a collector and then started to create. And it takes time to understand it. And for people that are interested in the space, I would definitely suggest starting as a collector and taking some time and seeing what you like and understanding it before becoming a creator.
How are you thinking about collecting from that kind of learning standpoint to then eventually wanting to be a creator?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. I think of collecting as a way of amplifying certain artists. So I'm definitely looking for women, BIPOC, LGBTQ, questioning, queer artists, and of course, looking for art that I like. So I'm starting from those places, and I like work that moves. I'm really into movement. I like work that has sound. I like work that is critical, having some sort of statement about what's going on in the space. There's a lot of critique going on, I would say. The trash art, I really like the trash art movement because they're always poking fun at things that are happening in the space and beyond the space too.
You are listening to Newfangled Dance.
I think it was on your website. I might misquote this, so please correct me. But you were critical of Silicon Valley. A lot of the people in the blockchain space started in Silicon Valley and things like that. So I'm curious, what's your perspective? I just wanted to learn more about that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I see criticism as an optimistic thing because it's asking for change. And as someone who's working as a woman in technology, I absolutely have to be critical of Silicon Valley and the mostly white males that are working with a philosophy of move fast and break things. And I work with the philosophy of move slow and fix things. So I'm pushing back against it. And the way that I critique Silicon Valley is through questioning the ethics involved. I taught a class at NYU called The Ethics of Big Tech and Social Media. And that class was fully interrogating the behavior of Silicon Valley and of big tech and social media and how it's destroying our society. Yeah, I'm very vocal I'm quick to engage in conversations and to call out unethical behavior. And that's one of my main offerings that I bring, is to be a voice of refusal. When you say no to something, it allows space for something else to happen. So it's really important to say, no, nope, that's not okay. Let's change this.
I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into this conversation. When we first started out our podcast, we were seeing how much social media, and this was back in 2019, like spring, so early 2019, we were really seeing how social media was shifting the landscape of dance. At the time, we didn't really know like how specifically, but we definitely saw something was happening. And so when we set out to have these conversations with artists and creators that are working in the dance space in some capacity, we wanted this podcast to almost serve as an archive for the impacts of technology and social media through time. Obviously, we know social media has its pros and cons. And I noticed on your website, you recommended a book. It's called 10 Arguments for Deleting Your Social Media Accounts Right Now. And then I also saw that you noted in our one sheet preparing for the interview that you are anti-social media and you no longer use the platforms. And I would just love to talk more about this. You were mentioning that in the course you taught at NYU about like ethics behind social media and things, that there's certain elements to call out. And I would love, if you're comfortable, for you to call those concerns and problems out right now.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's something I'm really passionate about. So social media as it stands is based on a star-based economy. And there's influencers that everyone is trying to be like, but it's impossible to achieve that because there's only room in a star-based economy for a handful of stars. So that's where we start. And within this, we are being expected to give our content away for free. And then we're being barraged with harmful manipulation of algorithms that create addiction, that create mental health issues, that keep us engaged, that are based on marketing and buying things. So that, and then there is the surveillance, the tracking mechanism that it's capable of. It's following you around. It knows where you are. It's locating you in all of your photos. And it's gathering all of your data and using that against you to sell you things. And for some reason, everyone thinks that they can't live without it. And I'm here to say that you can. And I'm here to say that it's time for all of us to refuse this device, this mechanism that has completely destroyed society. Facebook is responsible for genocide. Okay? And Instagram, I left Instagram, I think, twice, once in 2016 and then again in 2019. They censored my content and I left. I recently left Twitter, and it's been lovely to not be on the platforms. And now I'm actually on a new platform that is a decentralized platform that is based on blockchain technology through Warpcast called Farcaster. And this network is all artist-based, and has social tokens for tipping. So you can tip each other, which is amazing. You can tip each other a cryptocurrency called degen. And this is referred to as a social token. So we're rewriting right now the way that we think social platforms should operate within the Web3 space. And I don't know if I covered every single thing that bothers me about social media. I think there's a lot of bullying that happens because you're unseen, because you're sometimes anonymous. It's easier to participate in bullying in the space on social media. It's really easy for someone you don't know and you can't see to just attack them. So there's a lot of hate speech. There's a lot of harmful content. There is the fact that negative posts get shared 6 times more than positive posts. So there's this amplifying of negative content. And now it's being weaponized. Social media is being weaponized against us by other countries, by people within our own country, for the disbursement of misinformation. It's not a good thing.
What do you say to maybe people like your students or people who are not as like established as someone like yourself, who I feel the pressure as a young nonprofit, as an emerging artist, trying to build a community around the work? What do you say to people in my situation or in your student situation that are feeling it's like you don't want to be the one left out, but you also want to make sure that you're using these tools that you have to share the important work that you're doing? It's just such a tough position to be in. So yeah, what do you say to us?
Yeah, the first thing I say is it's not working. It's not working anymore. It's broken. The algorithms are favoring certain things and you're having less people see your posts and it's not working. I think that, of course, there's other ways. There's always other ways. We have to be like water and move around the rocks that get in our way. You can easily send out a newsletter through email. And we've been talking a lot about this in the generative art Slack channel I'm on, because we're all like, what do we do? How do we market our work? A lot of people are turning to newsletters, to blogs, that kind of like older form of communication is starting to come back and it's starting to be more personable. And I don't look for artists to hire or collaborate with on social media. I never have. And I look at what I'm seeing around me. I see things, I hear about things from other people. I look at websites a lot. And I think websites are a powerful tool. Link trees are really great. Those are powerful tools. And also calls for submissions. That's a powerful way to build a community. You just put a call out. Put a call for some sort of participatory thing, get a bunch of people to engage with you, and you have a community. And you can do that without these platforms that really aren't working anymore.
And it sounds to me like you've been an early adapter to different digital platforms as they come out. How are you negotiating the continuous development of these new technologies and the pressure to stay relevant or innovative is like the big word right now? How do you decide what you continue to use? And how do you know if it's working for you and working for your art or isn't?
Thank you for that. I think everyone has their own process. I've never thought about staying relevant. I just go to the things that interest me. And I think that can be challenging at times because I'm on the peripheries a lot. I'm at the edges of things or at the front of the trail, like ahead of, I don't know, like a trailblazer when you're in these spaces before everyone else, then that also can be a bit of a challenge because no one knows what you're talking about. But I don't worry about that. I'm fascinated with technology. I hear about new things. I go and I work with them. I've always been that way. So I've always been in that world. So I have a lot of people around me that are doing that as well. And so I think that's how I find out about things. And also I'm like teaching technology, right? So that in itself is a heavy load. So I think I'm just like always looking for it, just always researching it, looking for it, seeing what's happening, putting myself in those spaces that are at the front of the revolution of technology. And yeah, I think it's important to remember that who cares so what? Nothing matters. We're all going to die, right? What are we doing? Let's enjoy our lives and let's do things that interest us and let's not feel pressured or beholden to do things that are not time well spent. And just, if you can approach life from there, I don't know why I did that. Probably because I went like this, maybe. I don't know. If you can start from there, if you can just approach life to enjoy it, because we're all going to die. And it doesn't matter how many followers you have or like how many likes your post got. You can't take that with you. Yeah. Just be curious and full of wonder and have a good time. And as artists, focus on the art. Make good work. That's how you get jobs, is by making good work and being a good human.
Don't forget to say no to the box.
The mission of the Museum of Wild and Newfangled Art provides an international online platform for the most timely, diverse, wild, and newfangled artists in the world. So for our listeners, could you talk more about what the Museum of Wild and Newfangled Art is and your hopes and dreams for this digital platform?
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a passion project. It's an online museum. And we are in our 4th year, which is really exciting to say. And on our 12th exhibition. And our main goal is to pay artists and to create a way for museums in the art world to build differently in the sense that we are able to generate income and pay artists in a holistic way, because I've seen a lot over the years where artists are expected to create the work. There's little funding to create the work. You have to pay for school. You have to pay to make the work. And then you have to pay to submit the work. And then you have to pay to go and see the work being exhibited. So that's not it. So I'm thinking about how do we pay the artists and get the artists funding and get school paid for and trips paid for, because there's a lot of institutions that are poaching the artist. And the artist doesn't have money to begin with. And all of these institutions are using the artist as a mechanism to generate income. And that's not it. I was just at this panel on Friday at Canvas 3.0 at the Oculus Center. And there's this NFT artist, Daniel, who's a photographer and started in the space when they were 13 years old and is now 16 years old and has made boatloads of money on their art and used that money to create a residency program for other artists to fund them and to fly them, paid for their flights to bring them to New York, exhibiting their work. So it's the other way around, right? That's what mowna is doing. We pay our artists, we sell the work on the blockchain. We do splits. We do 70-30 splits where the artist gets 70% and we get 30. Most gallery spaces are doing 50-50 splits. So we offer more of a split, and we have a website where we exhibit the work, and then we also exhibit the work on the blockchains. And we have around 422 artists now from 66 countries. Huge community. We've curated for Object One, which is part of object.com, which is the largest marketplace on the Tesla's blockchain. Yeah, it's been a wild ride and we love it. And our hopes and dreams, yeah, we have some big projects we want to do, creating around the planet art sanctuaries for places for people to go. I don't know if you've ever been to the Rothko in Houston. It's like a Rothko sanctuaries. It's something like that we want to do. And also to have probably like an in-person space at some point would be wonderful. And yeah, just to continue growing our pool of artists, educating, offering education, and onboarding new folks to the blockchain, Web3, and yeah, exposing the world to these amazing artists.
First off, just congratulations on everything you all are doing. And thank you. I think it's such important work. And especially this conversation around paying artists. That's one, when we first started our film festival, our dance film festival, we had initially started it in collaboration with another organization, and we just weren't in alignment in terms of paying the artists appropriately and paying the people who put on the event and things like that. And that's how we actually ended up starting our own dance film festival, just saying no to what they were doing. That's not it, like you were saying.
Right on.
And doing it our own way. And we have a similar value of wanting to continue to find also opportunities. We pay all the filmmakers whose work we're screening, but also finding continued opportunities for them to share their films, paid opportunities to share their films. So I feel like there's definitely a lot of alignments in how we're thinking about paying artists and just the future of the field and things like that. Do you have advice or things that have really worked for you all in terms of getting that type of support and people on board? I think everyone loves the idea, of course. Oh yeah, we're going to pay artists. But then when it actually comes down to it, that's when I think a lot of the like tug of war starts to happen. So I would just love to hear more about what is working for you all behind the scenes.
Brava to you for what you're doing. I love it. Congratulations on that. It's big work. It sounds so simple to pay artists, but it's not simple, especially in this country. There's not a lot of funding. And yet there's so much money, right? There's so much money. Yeah. I think our biggest success has just been selling the work on the blockchain. And yeah, I was talking to Kika Nicolella, who's one of the head curators for Object, and we want to do a film festival because we're both coming from the film world. And we're like, let's do a film festival. So maybe that would be a way to get you on there and bring your filmmakers and sell the films. Yeah, I think also it's about tenacity and it's about persistence and it's about time. Just hanging in there and just to keep doing it. And like I said before, be like water and flow around the obstacles. And money is an abstract concept. There's that. There's a lot of money in certain places. There's a lot of funding for startups. There's a lot of funding, venture capital funding. So you can always go after that kind of thing. I think whenever you're doing something innovative, people are interested in funding those things. And yet it's still hard, right? It's still hard to get money to do the work. So it's also about having really strong artists that you believe in and letting that be your gold, right? It's the artists and their work that is the value. And so if you collect or gather a community of artists that are must-have artists that are just like making amazing work, then I think there will be abundance that springs from that.
Can you talk to me about the art that you're currently making and what's really exciting for you right now?
Yeah, I'm working as a generative artist. I started learning how to code in 2015 when I moved to New York City. And now I'm working with code to create generative art and also to create interactions for dance. I just recently had a drop called Body Landscapes, which I took self-portraits of myself naked. I often work in the nude. And it was a way of making peace with my body. I had breast cancer. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2019, day of lockdown, actually, March 15th.
Wow.
And yeah. And
That's so scary.
It was rough and went through that during the pandemic and finally have come to a place of just like processing all of that. And I'm processing the changes in my body because as a dancer, like it's a body-based practice. And so just like making peace with my body and the new like shape and form of my body. And so I took all of these pictures, I removed the background, color corrected them, and then used code to animate them with this like jiggling animation that evokes emotion, like an emotional quality. And the project is pulling from 31 different body shapes and creates this almost like a train. It looks like this like conveyor belt of bodies that are layered in different sequencing with different background colors. And everyone is different because it's a generative project. And when you mint it, like you get a new version. So I'm really like excited by that project. I also took some of the images and turned them into GIFs and put those on the Tezos blockchain and also put those into the Loop Art Critique exhibition that I was in, Slipping Past, that was curated by Carla Ganis, and created like this space with those inside it. And they're these like flickery flashing body GIFs that I stacked gradually. It all came out of a dream I had. And it's just a project that I really love and was my Genesis drop on the Ethereum blockchain for the FX Hash 2.0 event and was collected by the Mud Foundation. And it was featured on the FX Hash press. And now I'm thinking about like how to bring GLBs into generative art. So I'm thinking about like 3D bodies and how we can work with that generatively. I'm also making generative dances that use generative visuals and sound as scores. I'm creating as you said earlier, I'm working on a AI choreographer project that's open source and community developed to create movement that is accessible and equitable. So those are some of the big projects I'm working on. I also have an inflatable project, Shimmer the Singing Sea Anemone, which are these inflatable giant sea anemones that are empathy generators that you can get inside of. And those are really fun. They're great for kids. I don't know how old your kids are, but they love that stuff.
Create, discuss, and advocate for art. No box dance.
I'm working with the morphic field a lot and thinking about human as AI and like how to prompt a human to move in ways that are healing. So I'm always circling around the idea of healing because of having gone through this event in my life where I had to heal myself, right? So now I'm thinking like, how can I create states of healing through creative, interactive experiences using technology?
And it's really exciting to hear about all the work that you're creating, like you said, centered around healing. And I feel like we could have an entire podcast episode where we just really dive deep into each project, honestly, and learn more about the process behind each project and things like that. How do you choose like which platform is best for which work, if that makes sense? Because you work in so many different platforms, but both in person and online. And so I'm wondering, is it from conception, oh, this is going to live in this kind of space? Or is it as you're making the work, you're realizing, oh, I think this space might best support this work?
Yeah, I am obsessed with circles and circling and gathering. And I think about that like circular nature that flows. That's like what the morphic field is, that just like energy that's being put out in a gathering of bodies that brings us all together and gives us like more knowledge than we would have on our own. So with the work, I'm thinking about how it can move between platforms. And for example, like I'm thinking about how to bring performance in the body to the blockchain. And I do that through generative art, through GIFs, and creating like sequences of the work that's performed and then putting it on the blockchain. And then how does it come back out to the community? How can it be performed live? Does it start from a live performance and then get archived onto the blockchain? How does it come back around? Now I'm thinking about doing hologram prints of my GIFs that I've made of gorgeous creatures and warning sirens, my two works that I archived and put on the blockchain, dance works. So I think it's not about one platform. It's just about like, how can we just keep it moving around? My anemones are very much like in person, away from keyboard, AFK. And so now I'm thinking like, can I photograph those and make GIFs of those and put those on the blockchain? So it's just like this like continual circling. And yeah, it's really about the concept and what best serves the concept. It's never about the platform of the technology. It's about the idea and the concept. And then what is going to bring it forth in the best way possible and serve that concept. So it's always coming from that place and not about, should I put it here? Should I put it there? Where does this live? Yeah. Deep listening to the creative idea, inspiration.
It's almost like how your work can be in conversation with itself too, as it like there's many different like iterations of a similar concept or idea. And I think that's really beautiful and can give so many opportunities to meet people where they're at. I think what's really exciting for me about the digital landscape is it can provide opportunities for people to engage with art who might otherwise not, or be afraid to go in an immersive installation or something like that. They can do it, like you said, from the keyboard. And so I think it's really cool how you're able to create those different avenues and venues for engagement with kind of a similar piece of art. And I really love that. What are your predictions for the future of technology and dance and the moving body?
I think it's our responsibility to think about how do we archive dance and how do we bring it to the interface of the worldwide network through technology. How do we make it accessible to people that can't leave their apartments because of being disabled or sickness? How do we create experiences for audiences that are beyond the proscenium? How do we create experiences for people that can't afford to pay money for tickets? How do we bring dance to the streets? How do we colonize the body? How do we decolonize dance? How do we, I don't know if I like that word. I'm starting to use the word liberate. How do we liberate dance? Because it's so stuck in this like codified technique and this like school of training. And when I talk to people and I say, oh, I'm a dancer, and they're like, oh, I can't dance. And what are you talking about? Everyone can dance. Everyone can move their bodies. We all can dance. It's inherent. It's in our nature to move. It's like the original language, right? It's how we originally communicated, by movement and grunting. It's everyone can do it. And something that makes us feel good. It's healthy. It is joyful. So how can we as dance makers get back to that? I'm not very interested in sitting in an audience in like the dark and looking at someone doing a dance that is similar to everything else I've seen. I want to be part of it. I want to interact. I want to move my body. And I'm thinking that the future is to bring dance back to the circle, back to ritual, back to like culture and shared experiences and the streets, and make it for everyone and really recognize what it is, because it's magic. Dance is magic. That's where magic is coming from. That's where ritual is built around, is the movement of the body. So I see that as the future.
I love how you frame it with so many different questions or provocations that we can explore and hopefully all build and create together.
Flash 4.
We have our last segment, which is our Flash 4. This is where we ask all our guests to answer 4 questions in a flash, so as fast as possible. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. If you had to recommend a resource to our audience, what would it be?
Glitch Feminism by Legacy Russell, the book.
What was the first dance you saw?
My mom doing the jitterbug.
Do you think social media has a positive influence on the dance world? Yes or no?
No.
Hey, Dan, what is your favorite social media platform?
Farcaster.
My last question for you today is, how do you say no to the box?
Yeah, I'm always saying no to the box, to agitprop, through asking questions, through refusal, through deviance, through just wanting to do things differently because everyone's doing the same thing. So why not try something else?
Cari, I don't even know if I have enough words to describe how I feel about this conversation, but it was really meaningful for me. And I'm really grateful that you took the time to be so vulnerable and open with me and with our listeners as we talked through social media. And it was a pleasure to hear about all of the work that you're doing. How can our listeners stay connected with you and what you're doing?
Yeah, you can go to my website, which is cariandshimsham.com. And you can always email me. I answer all my emails.
Like you answered ours.
And I'm also on Farcaster. So that's through Warpcast. So that's a new social media, decentralized platform built on Web3 and the blockchain. So you can find me there. And I'm in New York City. So if you come through, let me know.
Fantastic. Thank you again for coming on our show.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Yay.
Dance Behind the Screen podcast is produced by kNOwtes Dance, an art service organization that creates, collaborates, and discusses art with artists and the public. Dance Behind the Screen podcast is co-hosted by Azaria Hogans, Raina Mondragon, Marthea Nygaard, and Yejin Choi, with sound designed by Daniel Rosas.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at kNOwtes Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.